Hello, hello, and welcome to the MassCan's Education Village. Thank you for coming and visiting. Today we're going to have a great interview with one of the old originals, not old. He's a very young man, but he's been around for a long time. How he worked that, I can't tell, but somehow he did it. The guy's name is John Leonard. This is my little friend. I'll be trimming while I'm interviewing John. This is a 710 mango, and it's the first plant that I'm harvesting for this season. It's September 29th, and so it's a little bit early for my normal harvest, but this plant was ready. So she's been cut off the plant. She's being trimmed up, and pretty soon she'll be dried and smoked. Oh, didn't need to say that directly to you. Anyway, we are very lucky today to have with us John Leonard, and he is a very, very early Massachusetts cannabis activist, a former director and officer of MassCann's NORML. He was not only the organizer of the hemp table, but he was the person who really started the hemp table for MassCann's. And that's MassCann's way of selling cannabis-related items, not only at our Freedom Rally, but also at all of our other events as well. And also, John is one of the three founders of the Drug Policy Foundation of Massachusetts. And also, John loves to travel and has done some extensive travel in China. So if you have extra time, it would be fun to talk to him about China and cannabis in China, which I'm sure we'd all be interested in finding out about. I am Bill Downing. I'm a former longstanding director and officer of MassCann's NORML. Today, I'm interviewing, as I say, John Leonard, a person who was instrumental in the formation and development of MassCann's NORML, and by extension, the populist movement for cannabis law reform in Massachusetts. If marijuana law reform has benefited you in any way, John is one of the few activists who, I can testify by my own witness, toiled for years voluntarily and has earned your appreciation. John brings years of experience organizing public actions. John, thank you for all your hard work educating the public and enabling sweeping moderation of cannabis laws in Massachusetts. Also, thank you for agreeing to speak with us today.
Well, great, Bill. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad this is great. There's lots of history over the years, and as older people go on and newer people come in, it's good to let people know how we got here. We got to this point in time and what we had to deal with to get here.
Yep, that's one of the new missions of the Education Village. So we appreciate your helping us with accomplishing that goal of ours. And we've done 3 interviews before this one. Just to do a quick recap, we started off, I believe it was with Linda Noel, and then we had Maddie Webster, and I'm trying to recall, I think we had a third one as well. But anyway, I know we've done Linda Noel and Maddie Webster. Oh yes, Dick Evans, of course, Dick Evans, who's been around longer than all of us. But anyway, I thought it was valuable, John, to find out from you some things that you might know that other people might not. And one of those would be, what was it like here in Massachusetts being a cannabis activist before 1989, before MassCann's was formed? Were there other organizations? Were there other efforts? Were you involved? How did that go?
I remember in high school going into, I think we got to take the day off. There was something else. There was something happening at the legislature. And I remember Sheriff Buckley. Sheriff Buckley was a progressive Republican who sponsored, who tried to change the law back in the early mid 70s. So he was out there in front. And I remember, so yeah, 74, 75, I remember going to a legislative hearing with him. So there weren't many people, you know, it was just a short and small amount of folks. I had been politically active in a number of issues, you know, a little bit recycling, which was kind of a radical proposition back in the early 70s. And several of us had been involved in the United Farm Workers Great Boycott and other issues. And one of the people I worked with, two people I had worked with on the Great Boycott, was all hot to trot to go on the marijuana issue. And I was, but one friend wanted to jump right into doing an initiative, and I cautioned him. I said, "This is, you know, you're getting into a lot. We don't have the people to collect the number of signatures you're going to need." But I couldn't convince him otherwise, and he jumped into it. And back in those days, the state printed out all your petitions. So I remember going in with a hand truck into the Secretary of State's office and load after load and putting a bunch in the van. Was that back in 1977? So yeah, that was the first legalization initiative back then.
Sounds as though perhaps
a lot of work based on that. Tom and Gary did an interview in a local newspaper, and it was the Massachusetts Marijuana Initiative Committee, and this was fall of '77. And yeah, they had the offices in their apartment, and shortly after the interview, after the article, Gary left his job without reason. And Gary was a hard worker, really a very likable guy, and he was fired without reason. And it seems obvious that it was he worked as a janitor and a school bus driver, and was fired shortly after. And his fellow bus drivers stood firm behind him. They really liked him and were irritated at the school system. So they pushed it, and the school system rehired it. But that was our first taste of what can happen to you by being active in in a marijuana movement.
Do you remember Gary's last name, by any chance? Gary's last name?
Gary Glazer and Tom Alcieri. And there was the three of us. And yeah, those days were a lot different. I tried to open an account. I wish I remembered the bank in Cambridge, and the manager came and talked to me and said, "We will not, they would not lower and besmirch their good reputation by hosting such an account," and refused us an account. And Gary later had a night watchman job, and he had to be vetted for it, and that involved the state police looking into his background. And they told him a story that one of us had gotten arrested, and we had given his name as the responsible party, and it was just anyone used to how the police do it is used to something like that, but he wasn't. And
and just so people know, what John is referring to is the fact that police are actually not only allowed, but trained and encouraged to lie to people.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
If you're brought into the police station and the police tell you, "Oh, your mom just gave us testimony against you," your mom didn't give testimony against you. Sorry. They're making it up, and they're lying to you. They do it all the time.
Yeah, and this was like it was what they were doing on the national level with progressive groups. The COINTEL program, they would write letters to try and get infighting going between progressive, within within progressive groups and such. This is the same thing on a more local level, and we weren't, you know, it was something to break up our political group, and it worked. He left, and I didn't know, I didn't know the circumstances. He was just gone, and then it wasn't a year, 2, 3 years later I found out what happened. So that was, it's another thing that happens with back then. It's nothing like it is now. You could have a lot of repercussions. Back in the, I don't know how many people in MassCan's know this, even some of the older members. When was it, Bill, that we had that march for the young couple with the baby that was arrested for a few plants in their home?
Oh, yes, Farmer. That was John Farmer.
John Farmer. Was that the early 90s, 91, 92?
Must have been, and it was in Chelmsford, I believe.
You're right, Chelmsford. And it was a meager amount of, what was it, like 15, 20 plants?
Yeah, it was a very small number, yeah. Yeah,
something like that. And they were facing forfeiture. In fact, I think it was already undergoing, or maybe, it was right in the middle of forfeiture.
Twice growing, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, friend's father at the time worked it was an officer in the Lexington Police Department, and there was pictures of us. We had a march. What was it, 15, 20, 25 of us, I think, through the town.
We did.
And apparently the local police department took our picture and circulated it to other police departments. This is, our picture was, if it ended up in Lexington, it must have, it's not much to assume that it probably ended up in police departments all over the area. But our pictures were circulated, dangerous, seditious criminals. So
yeah, probably just as evil as that Black Lives Matter group,
Yeah, right. So it's definitely a different landscape back then. That was you could get into a lot. You could get fired from your job. I mean, certainly some of that still happens today, and especially in the more conservative states, where we don't have legalization. But you really stuff happened.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So it was a lot. The police. Nowadays the police are a lot more. A lot of. In recent years, circulating. The ballot petitions. Many off-duty cops would sign, but back then you might as well have been guilty of some major crime or something. You were definitely a target when you were active with this. You were it was a whole different world back then. Yes. Yep. So, anyways, I ended up being the person who did most of the signature collecting, and I had a table at UMass Boston, and I had a table at Park Street Station. So that was, September, October of 1977. So that was the first legalized marijuana action was the first September Boston Common legalization action. The first rally was one person at a card table at Park Street Station. So it's certainly grown since then.
Modest start, yes.
Yeah, one person. So it was. Yeah, I felt a little bit like Don Quixote. It was. I had my sword, and I was swiping at a few windmills.
Right. And you didn't even have your liege. You didn't even have your valet. Like Don Quixote had his valet, of course.
Yeah. I got separated. I think you got separated the train. The subway door closed on the valet, so I had to do it alone. So, but it was interesting. It was, I remember that. I remember sitting next to there was a newsstand right next to my card table, and I remember the High Times cover with Willie Nelson and Johnny Rotten on the cover, sharing the cover together, and collecting signatures then. But it was, you got to start someplace. Then I remember I went to a forum at the Harvard Science Center in the late 70s, and Dana Beale and Doc Humes from the Unidentified Flying Idea in Cambridge put it on. And it was it was great. It was the best forum I've ever been to. It was on marijuana. It was at Harvard Science Center, and Todd McCuria, who was back in 1972, they attempted a legalization initiative. They did get on the ballot, and they did lose by a pretty wide margin. But again, you got to start someplace. But he was the best lecturer on marijuana, and he had a number of people. He gave them scripts, and we read we role played on the stage. We role played out the 1936 congressional hearings on marijuana. He was a real scholar, and boy, what a.
So when you're talking about an initiative and Todd McCuria, you must be referring to California.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. In 1972, Amorphous organized this group in California, Amorphous organized a legalization initiative. And I forget. I think they got, I don't know what it was. Don't quote me, 21%, or I think it was in the 20s. But, they got on the ballot and they did something, you gotta start there. And so that was the territory. I remember going to a little tiny rally at one of the dorms in the late 70s, outside UMass Amherst. There just wasn't a lot of stuff going on. There was some attempts at legislation and such, but that was the landscape back then. And other people more knowledgeable can talk about Roz Windsor and some of the legislative efforts in Massachusetts, but
actually, Linda spoke a bit about Roz, and I guess Roz and Lester Grinspoon and a few other people like that were working on these issues.
Yeah. So they were. Those people more worked on the legislative side, and we.
They tried the initiative. Right.
Yeah. And so that was, there was some, I would go down to the smoke-ins in Washington, D.C., the July 4th smoke-ins, and it was exciting, and the music, and, but we were certainly, we certainly weren't anywhere close to changing the law. But, when it's a small group of people, and we just didn't really have the support in the population. It was back in the late 70s. I think the polling was something of like 15% of the people supported legalization. So, there's not, other than do demonstrations and such, in education, there's not a whole lot you can do legislatively or by initiative when your support is so low in the population. So,
yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was that, and the first real chance I saw beyond, demonstrations of a few, and was with the Reagan election in 1980, Nancy Reagan came in with the Just Say No movement. It was spurred by some of these concerned parent groups. It had the attitude had liberalized a lot during the Jimmy Carter years, and it looked like it might not. Some people thought it, a big change in law might not be too far away, but concerned parents group grabbed the headlines, and the national zeitgeist went with them and brought the Just Say No movement came, and it just became like a McCarthyite movement, kind of a marijuana McCarthy, anti-drug McCarthy movement. And it was spurred on also by the explosion in crack cocaine, and all drugs got lumped together. And so the climate changed from the Carter years to the Reagan years very differently. But there was a glimmer of hope out in Oregon. People were seriously organizing an initiative, and it was out the West Coast. It was more liberal-minded towards marijuana, and it was a good opening. And some of the people that were organizing the DC Smokin' were trying to get people to go out and work on the Oregon Marijuana Initiative. So I heeded the call and caught a train to the DC Smoke-In, and then afterwards was out with Dana Beal, who's been doing marijuana demonstrations for a long time, and went out with him and other people. We went out to Missouri to a rainbow gathering, and then we went off to Ben Mizell's down, and also another marijuana organization up in Madison, Wisconsin, and then I ended up in Oregon, and it was very exciting. I got dropped off. The plane managed to lose my luggage. I dropped off there, and there was this large woman and her kids waiting to pick me up, and she was very commanding voice, and they had a Oregon Marijuana Initiative had a free newspaper they gave out called the Marijuana Report, and this very boisterous woman she'd go, "Free marijuana," and then in soft letters, "Report." And the kids would echo her. I was going, wow, this is very irresistible. And went up to the so I got to we started out the Oregon Country Fair, which was great. It was what a magical place that was, and started collecting signatures there, and it was a very Eugene, Oregon is very liberal-minded, and
Blue Jean,
I was
Oregon.
definitely
Blue Jean, Oregon.
yeah. So it was great. It was really, it was. We had a chance of winning. We had a chance of getting on the ballot. The previous year, there had been a serious effort to get on the ballot. There was a small amount of money. I can't remember. Maybe it was Hugh Hefner, Playboy. I can't remember now. There was some funding, and they had gotten possibly enough signatures to get on the ballot the previous go-round. And the Secretary of State of Oregon, Norma Paulus, was very anti-marijuana, and there was a concerted effort to screw us and keep us off the ballot. The day that Nancy Reagan came with her Just Say No juggernaut was the day that Norma Paulus announced that we did not qualify for the ballot. And I can't remember the people that were there the previous go round, had all these stories, all these outrageous stories, how not only this at the Secretary of State level, but at town clerk level, how we would get screwed from signatures. The result of that was it was so obvious how badly we got screwed. It so offended people, regardless of where people stood on marijuana, that the Oregon legislature reformed the procedure for verifying signatures.
wow.
We could turn it. I forget all the ways it was reformed. One of the things, we could turn in signatures early, and if we were short, we could get more. And there was a number of other specifics I can't recall at the moment. But anyways, the spotlight was on fairness and doing this legally.
Right.
It was so here we were. We had a good chance this time of doing it, and there was, there were good people there. There was I met. I think I met Chris Conrad there. I met Dale Geringer, Dennis Perrone, Jack Harrar. Very committed people.
Wow.
Out
On the
there.
national scene, yeah.
Yeah. There was plenty of Oregon people, but there was all the California activists. They were there, and it was really, and some from around the country. But this was what was happening in the country. There was a little bit of money. There was enough money for an office, and they had some stipends for people collecting signatures. It was exciting, and we were in. The office was in Portland, which is a very open-minded city. So we were, Eugene, Portland. They were wide open to us, and we did. We were doing good. We collected signatures. It was exciting. Yeah, I would just walk around collecting signatures, but there was crews that went out, and we're in Massachusetts. We're very lucky because we have protections. If you're going out and if you're collecting signatures to put a question or a candidate on the ballot, you can, due to a state Supreme Court decision in Massachusetts, you can collect signatures even though it's private property if there's more than one store in a shopping mall.
Yeah.
You can't, the supermarket can't fill you out, but there was no such protections in Oregon. And so on the crew, I would often just walk around the city streets getting signatures there, but on the cruise, sometimes I would go out with the cruise, and what we would do, it was exciting to work with Jack Harrar. He was a force. He was definitely a force. Yeah. He partied, but he was a hard working guy. He just was. I was telling people that it was like working with Jack Harrar was like going to Paris Island and going to boot camp, and he was the drill inspector. He had a van, and we would go out in the van, and the procedure was you'd go out and you'd collect signatures. Eventually a customer, maybe the manager would see it, but more likely a customer would go in and complain to the management. The management would come out, talk to you, tell you had to leave, but you were to keep standing there and keep collecting signatures till the police came. And the way the law went was the police could not arrest you until the police themselves ordered you to vacate the property. And just about that time, Jack's timing was great. This was in the days before cell phones, and many people, weren't even perhaps listening to this, weren't born in those days. But Jack had everything timed, and he'd go out and when he'd finish dropping off the load of people, it'd be just about time to come back and rescue the person just standing just outside the supermarket property. And he'd drop off a new person, and the procedure would happen all over again at the supermarket. So that's
great.
It was great, and we had a great time, but it was work. Jack was serious, huh?
He was a taskmaster.
He was a taskmaster, and And it felt like, going, the van would, there was lots of stuff to do. There wasn't time to tarry. The van would stop. The side door, those old 70s vans, the door would slide open, and it was just like a plane dropping paratroopers off over Europe, on D-Day or something. The door would open, it tapped, and you jumped. You didn't tarry, you jumped. And you get out and did your job. But it was a real high. It was really something working with him. There was he more than anybody else. There was a lot of interesting people I worked with, but he was something. He would, just his actions bragged. He didn't have to say anything, but he would tell the story about, he went way back in activism. I can't tell you for absolute sure, but I think he was involved in the 72 initiative. But anyways, he'd been involved for years. He ran different smoke shops in California, I think mostly the LA area. And, he was always involved in marijuana politics. And he was once standing on property of the Los Angeles post office, and the Reagan motorcade went by, the President Reagan motorcade. And Jack found out the whole story that went on inside later. President Reagan saw Jack standing at the post office property with a marijuana sign, and Reagan got so pissed off. He said, is that legal, that guy standing there? And there was some calls made or whatever, and they found out he could legally stand there, and he said, get whatever you have to do, make it so that guy cannot stand there anymore. And the head or one of the high ups in the post office dusted off some ancient unenforced postal rule, and they Reagan made it that Jack eventually got thrown off the post office property. But
wow.
But anyways,
and just so everybody knows, Jack Herr is very famous in the movement for authoring the book that's often referred to as the Marijuana Activist Bible, and that's called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Yeah.
So when I say Jack Herr inspired many people, he inspired many people, unexpected people in unexpected ways. But he was. So,
John, let's shift focus a little bit because I want to get to my second question.
Sure.
This was all stuff that was happening in the late 70s.
In mid-80s, 85. That was 85. Morgan and Marijuana Initiative is 85.
I see, yep. Okay. Yep. But here in Massachusetts, it doesn't seem as though much was going on during that time period. It doesn't seem that until in the later 80s that things started to happen again. Is that perception on my part true?
True. Yeah. 80. Yeah, when I found out about there was stuff going on at, there was a rally going to be happening out in Western Mass, out in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, a rally for legalization. I was there. That was exciting. And so we went out. It was going to be, downtown Pittsfield. Jack Herr was scheduled to be there, but the town fathers refused us a permit on the town square and had us moved, had granted us a permit at the town dump. They thought that was the appropriate place for our rally. And so much thanks to Dick Evans, who litigated that and forced them to do it downtown. But it was, it was fun. We had
and just so people out there know, this is very typical. We had this kind of stuff happen a lot when MassCann was trying to organize events. In fact, we successfully sued the town of Ashland for passing an ordinance specifically not allowing MassCann to have events in their town. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I had forgotten about that. That's definitely important for people to know. Yeah. We would have been out in the town dump, but it was great. We were there. There was picketers across the street, anti-marijuana picketers, and Jack was there. And my friend Andrew,
had kidnapped another friend. Had a tourist photograph thing where you got your picture taken with a stand-up Reagan, and Andrew had kidnapped Reagan, and we had him in the van, and then we had like about an 8 or 9 foot paper mache and chicken wire joint strapped to the roof racks of the van. We got out there. We got out there. Yeah, so we got out. It was Andrew Hoffman, Abby's kid. He was so he had the joint on the roof racks and Reagan in the van. And we got out for the rally, and we had a kind of a cut up Reagan speech that we put on the PA. We had Reagan as a speaker at the first thing with the big joint, and giving a cut up, a really great cut up speech, that was cut up from some earlier Reagan speeches. So that was great. We had a great after party up in the mountains there, just off of Route 2, up in the Berkshires. It was just a wonderful get together, and
Well, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. I was there. I didn't have nearly as good a time as you did. But
you were there for the rally on the hill there?
Well, no, I was in the parking lot.
Okay.
I didn't get to the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, and Heather was
great
there
party after.
Yeah. But anyway, do you remember anything about the organization of the event? Who was in charge and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was a guy, and I forget his name, and he did it. And then shortly afterwards, he moved out to Naderland, Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And a word has never been heard from him since.
Uh-huh.
So, but he was the main organizer of it. And, I remember meeting Steve Epstein, I think at the rally on the hill afterwards. And Steve was talking about how he was, in the middle of the beginning stages of forming a normal chapter.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to remember who else. Jeez. That's the only person I can remember that was involved in later years.
That was at that party, yeah.
Yeah, it was there was a few people that were there involved in the very early years, but other than Steve, I can't remember, and Dick Evans, of course.
What about Linda Noel? I think she might have been there.
She might well have been there.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. Let's see. I consider you to be the founder of the Hemp Table. Did you come to MassCann with experience as a merchandiser?
Yes. Yeah, I had just moved I had been at the 89 rally, and then I had been living out in the Southwest, and I was importing beads and crafts and such, and I was selling stuff out in the Southwest, and I was doing wholesaling to stores and doing flea markets, and it was mostly bead items, craft items. But right. I started, there was a Chinese importer in Canada bringing in denim shirts, and I started bringing those around. And those got a lot of excitement.
Denim or hemp?
Hemp denim. It was like a 40, 60, 40, whatever it was, 40, 60, 45, 65, anyways, a cotton cannabis hemp mix.
Did it have a label
they were really
saying warning, contains 6 ounces of most deadly dangerous marijuana?
Yeah, yep. Those old denim jackets are collector's items. Somewhere. Yeah, I think I still might have, I think mine, I don't know if mine's still together, but they're valuable. Those hemp denim jackets are valuable. So anyways, I had a lot of experience on, I just live traveling from place to place out in the Southwest, and it was
That
great out there.
Yeah.
And so I was I was constantly constantly merchandising, hustling. I remember I accidentally banged into some woman's car in front of the bead store, but then I managed to sell her all sorts of beads. It was great. And yeah, I was doing a lot of, I had interesting stuff. I was bringing in, I had been in South America and I had I had a good source for hand painted beads. And yeah, it was an interesting life. And I came back here later in 91, and it was the 91 I missed the 90 rally, which was at the Constitution, but I was here. I was back in time for the 91 rally
on the
State House.
Yeah,
and I just I might have had a few things, and maybe MassCann had a few things. But anyways, I laid the table out and just did my usual shtick out on the table, and
that was it. That was the start of
that was it. And I just kept doing it and then just expanded. And
right. Well, we got that relationship with that big distributor guy who gave us terms. We were able to get billing from him. Yeah.
And we started making our own, printing our own custom MassCann T-shirts and MassCann back. Speaking of old days, computer pads, if anyone remembers those, and sure. what they are. We had MassCann matches. We even had MassCann condoms. Yeah, we had MassCann condoms. I was just Grant had asked me to write a bio, so I was writing about a bunch of stuff, and I was writing. We got it. Not only was it hemp, but we had literature out there too. We had books.
Oh yeah,
books and good literature, and we started. Not only did we do young people venues, but we tried to get into, we tried to expand it, and get, expose our ideas.
Let's qualify that, John. We're not talking about pre-teeners here. We're talking about
yes, right. Yeah, college age, right?
Relative to you and me.
Okay, right. Yeah. So we started, we started going to state political conventions, Democratic and Republican conventions.
Right, we did, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and then we were reaching
on the platform of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, twice if the whatever it was, the committee, central committee, the platform committee didn't vote it in, there was a method for the grassroots to get a platform on, and we had to collect X number of signatures, all from delegates. So we had to get there in the morning and collect signatures. We attempted it twice, and we did it in Springfield, and we did a pretty good job. We didn't get enough. And then we tried it again in Salem.
That's right.
And if we had one, we came so close. If we had one, there was one more person coming and he came late. If that last person had come early, we would have gotten enough signatures at the Salem Democratic Convention to put medical marijuana on, to have it voted for the state platform.
Right.
So, we were doing some serious political work. I remember I was writing earlier today in the bio to Grant. I was writing, what stuck out of my mind was the Worcester Democratic Convention. And I think it was you, Bill, that had written an attention-getting it was condensed to, of course, the size of a leaflet. But you talked about the drug war and race.
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
You
actually,
said some,
that was written by John Holmes.
Okay, all right, I was mistaken. All right, John Holmes wrote it. But anyways, very articulate and very controversial, and we passed it out. And a lot of people, it got some people pissed off. It really touched, it touched on issues that are happening right now. But we were, we were the first people putting it out to like the Democratic convention. There was this kind of literature didn't circulate before us.
Right.
We were out there, and I remember John Kerry reading John Holmes's leaflet, looking at it, and you could tell he was kind of pissed off.
Yeah.
But it was, and a number of people were kind of, making, John may have said some things that might have been a little unsubstantiated. He might have made, he might have pushed the envelope a little far. But anyways, we were definitely bringing, we're making it, we're making people think and making people talk. And these are the serious movers in the state. We had graduated beyond just doing the rallies to these are the people we want to talk to. The third parties are great.
Are the most powerful politicians in the state.
Yeah. I certainly thank the Green Party. I certainly thank the Libertarian Party, but they're already in the choir. We had to reach outside the choir and to the movers and shakers in the state. And, we were, I think, maturing as an organization as we started, making outreach there. I remember, you and I and some of the others were passing out the flyers, and a couple very pretty women MassCann volunteers were manning the table.
Oh, that's right.
And then they were passing out free matches and free condoms. And our table became there's plenty of political tables there, political vendor tables. You had to pay $150 or $200, whatever it was, to set up there, to be licensed to set up. Right. And our table was by far the most popular table. There was a line of people going to get our table. So,
right.
To get the free matches and condoms and stuff. And
to flirt with Vanessa Sakama.
Had to flirt with the girls at the table, handing out condoms. It was really great. We definitely made a splash. And, I remember the first Republican convention. People would look at us like kind of, they double take. I remember the first one, I think this one was also out in Springfield, and they would double take like, not believe in their eyes. And they, I had that a number of times, the double take looking at us. Right. And, they go, they kind of pinch themselves and come up and talk to them. But we had some great discussions. People were, maybe people weren't embrace us all, but they were, a lot of people were open to what we were saying.
Yeah, we were having discussions. Much better reception at the Democratic conventions than at the Republican one.
Yeah, but we still got some good, there were people listening to us. It was good. It was good to hit the unbelievers, and,
the unwashed masses.
The unwashed masses, right? The infidels. But now, Bill, did we successfully do one or two Republican conventions?
I only remember the one in Worcester.
Then there was Springfield, I think.
I see, yeah. Well, that's a long way away.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got, and then remember after that one or two, I guess it was just one. That afterwards we got banned. Remember?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah.
We got banned, and then you put out now, I'm sure. I think that this time, I think it was you that put out a flyer, and it had Lincoln's picture on it, and it talked about.
Yes, I did, and we handed that out at the Republican convention.
We were banned from inside, but we still were there, and we handed out the leaflet. We talked about the hypocrisy. It was a quote
about the prohibition too.
Yeah,
a prohibition is a breach of our fundamental rights of freedom.
Yeah.
He was, of course, referring to alcohol prohibition, but
right. But yeah. It was they had to think about. We made them think. And it was great. Yeah, I thought that was a great move that we did, and. It was good. And it was good. We were, as the 90s went on, more, we did that may have been a little earlier 90s, the teaching at Harvard.
Got it.
I think John Holmes had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And, they were starting to get listened to. And and there would be some cracks, and more and more people would start listening to us, and our rallies got big. I was set up at the Lollapalooza, and got a lot of people signed up there, and then Joe Bonney got involved through Lollapalooza, and then we got a lot more popular bands, we got WBCN to sponsor us, and
that's right. It was that first year when Bonnie brought in Sam Black
Letters to Cleo
and Letters to Cleo.
And Letters to Cleo had a top 10 hit on MTV
song for Friends.
Okay.
They were the ones that did that theme song.
Yeah. So it was like on national MTV. It had it was rotation as well as the radio station. So it was a rising big hit, and here they were performing free at our rally, and our rally population been growing, but then it just mushroomed hugely.
Yeah.
I see that it's getting close. I hope we can get a few more minutes.
All right. Let's talk about Mass Foundation, Drug Policy Foundation.
Oh, great. All right, that'd be great to get in a little bit about the elections. Yeah. In the 90s, there had been, there had been arguing between two factions in MassCann, and one had wanted to do an initiative, and I took the position that an initiative wasn't workable. We didn't have enough. We weren't going to get enough signatures. I had already done this route, and I knew the huge amount of work that it took to get signatures. And also, if you wanted to collect signatures, the worst place to do it would be a rally, because so many of your signatures would be bad. And even if by some miracle we got enough signatures to be on the ballot, we didn't have any money, and there was just no money to be available to run a campaign. And even if we had money to run a campaign, it was a little early. We didn't have the popular support right at that moment. So I saw it as I don't want to waste people's time. It's hard work collecting signatures, and for two ballot cycles, two initiatives every 2 years you can do them, and I'd be arguing against them. And I didn't want to just be arguing against activism. I think it's great that people are motivated to do activism. I just wanted it to be, not waste people's time, to have a chance of succeeding. So I got to look for something effective to, that we can be steered in and have an actual chance of succeeding. And then with finding out about under Mass state law, you can do public policy questions, which are non-binding elections. You can only 200 signatures in a state rep district, and 1,200 signatures in a state senate district to get on the ballot. That's doable. So I had talked with, Maddie Webster and I had been, talking a lot of political stuff over the years, and we're obviously there's only so much we can cover. There was a big petition drive in the Cambridge district in the early 90s, and there was the John Holmes had organized, and there was some productive purely political stuff going on, and I saw this as something that could succeed, and something that we could definitely do. I talked to Maddie about it and just said, let's get a meeting of people activists across the state who are interested in doing this. And we have to do some alternative to the state initiative. It's just not workable. And I don't want to, things had gotten to kind of a personal state at the board meetings, and it was, there was just not productive. Things were getting a little personal, and things weren't getting accomplished at the board meetings. And I knew, I didn't want to be spending the time arguing. I didn't want to, I wanted just to do things with like-minded people who believed that this could work. So I got together a meeting at Maddie's, and I didn't want to be in a big argument and name calling in the usual MassCan's board meeting. I just wanted to have a friendly meeting of people who had this vision, and it was a good success. We got a lot of, there was a lot of people at the meeting. I had been thinking, well, let's do a medical marijuana PPQ, but the feeling there was, let's do a decrim one, and let's do it in Charlie Shannon's district. Charlie Shannon was an ex-Lexington cop who now was a senator, and he was representing the very liberal areas of Somerville, Medford, and Winchester. And here was the guy who was a big opposition leader to Governor Weld's then Governor Weld's earlier efforts to legalize medical marijuana. He's a great target to go after. And then I asked a selectman in Provincetown who was in favor of marijuana liberalization if he wanted to run a medical marijuana PPQ down in that district. And this is, a lot of people were dying from AIDS in Provincetown. It was a popular, gay town, and there was a lot of AIDS there, a lot of people dying. And I thought, geez, this would be a great place to have medical marijuana on the ballot both. So anyways, here we got enough signatures in the Cape for medical marijuana, and kind of adrenaline last minute effort by a bunch of people on the last day, kind of like the Blues Brothers going around. We were on a mission from God and getting in just at the last. John Holmes was going off to the Cambridge City Hall, and I was going off to Medford and maybe Winchester, whatever. Getting to the last minute, maxing out our signatures. But we, just barely got on in the Cambridge, in that Charlie Shannon's Senate district. And then Jim Pillsbury formed a group of his own, Metro West Normal. Yeah. And he ran a decrim PPQ in Framingham, or half of Framingham. And Steve Epstein made his own PPQ for decrim and ran it up in Essex County. In the Cape, we spent like $2,000, and then the Charlie Shannon's district, we spent $2,000. It was like the Cape, we put inserts into the newspaper. They had the daily Cape Cod Times put in an insert. And then Maddie was at the head of that at the Charlie Shannon's district. There was flyers. There was Dear Neighbor postcards that you'd fill out and send to your neighbors. And I think there was something in the newspaper, too. I think there might have been an ad in the newspaper, an insert in the newspaper. But anyways, the campaign manager for Senator Shannon had got a leaflet in his door, and maybe he got a dear friend postcard, and maybe he saw something in the newspaper. I may be a little inaccurate there, but anyways, he saw several pieces of campaign literature, and then we won with 2/3 of the vote in the district. And he ended up changing around from being opponent of marijuana reform. He turned around. His campaign manager was very enthusiastic, and I'm sure helped sway Senator Shannon into from our head-on opposition to now proponent. He became a lead sponsor of decrim, and on the Cape in Republican Shirley Gomes' district, she didn't like the part about patients being able to grow their own marijuana. I was talking to her on election day, but she saw the vote and she changed, and she co-sponsored medical marijuana legislation. And, you know, that was the beginning. We were accomplishing something, and you know, we really, you know, we saw the potential and something effective.
And what resulted in the medical cannabis therapeutic research programs that the Department of Public Health stifled.
Yeah. So it was really exciting, and that just, you know, that we, you know, it's great doing rallies and everything, but I didn't want to move into my 70s and 80s still doing rallies. I wanted to really change the law. And, you know, we didn't really have, you know, earlier years, we didn't really have much alternative to the rally, you know, handing out flyers, teach-ins. But now the situation had changed where we really could do something. We were getting enough support in the population. We may not have been able to, you know, win a majority on legalization, but we were at the point where we could win majorities on medical marijuana, and in the more liberal areas of the state, we could win on decrim. And, you know, so the door was open. And once the door was open, boy, you know, once the door was open, it was time to take full advantage of it and exploit the opportunity for everything it was worth. So, you know, from 2000 to 2014, just every year, just do these local elections. Scott Mortimer, Maddie Webster, and myself ended up working on elections through Drug Policy Forum of Massachusetts. And the first few years, Steve Epstein did them alone, and then later years, Steve got MassCan's involved in it. I think in 2002, the next thing, DPF and MassCan's did Boston together. I think we did 9 out of 16 state rep districts. It's a little hard when you get into urban areas doing rep districts. When you get into urban areas, better to do a Senate district. Anyways, there's some you know, we definitely learned some logistics and we got really, you know, there was some really hard workers in Massachusetts who you know, worked hard on these PPQs and got good at them. And we inspired the Speaker of the House, I forget his name. He ran it like a dictatorship, and there was a movement to overthrow, you know, to liberalize to democratize the chamber. And they took inspiration with what MassCan's, you know, and DPF were doing with PPQ. So our PPQ idea spread to other activists. You know, it was great. We'd go in and we just started doing them all over the state, and people were, I think some of the legislatures were fairly surprised. You know, we'd win, and then the newspaper would interview them, and you could tell they were shocked that marijuana did so well in their district. In 2010, I knew the medical marijuana initiative was coming. I went and focused on some of the most marijuana conservative districts in the state. I looked up the different reps who had sponsored bad marijuana legislation, and I came right. You know, these of course would probably be, you know, the districts would be electing these people. We'd probably be getting the worst vote in the state on, you know, medical marijuana in the district. But I knew that even in the most conservative districts, we had come to a point in time where we could win even in these really conservative districts. And I wanted to make a message. I wanted to make a message to these legislatures that you are out of sync with the people. Even though you are in a conservative district, they are not conservative on this issue. And I wanted to make a point to national funders. I wanted to show national funders that you can win medical marijuana in Massachusetts. Here are the most conservative areas of the states, and we're winning. If we're winning in the most conservative areas in the states with these local non-binding ballots, you, the national funders, you can win a statewide initiative. You can, we're proving you can win medical marijuana. Here we are doing the most hostile districts in the state and winning. So, that was, that was in 2010 before the election cycle before the 2012 medical marijuana.
We're going a little bit over time, but I did want to get in a couple of questions. And one of them is, okay, but I do want to be somewhat succinct here. So I want to continue on if we can. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, I know that the Drug Policy Foundation here in Massachusetts.
Forum. It's actually Drug Policy Forum in Massachusetts.
Forum, okay. Initially brought in Whitney Taylor to work with you on various projects. And then, of course, Whitney has become fairly famous on the local cannabis scene and in Massachusetts politics a bit, because she ended up running the ballot initiative campaigns, a couple of them anyway. And also she is now a political director at ACLU of Massachusetts.
Yep.
So things with Whitney have worked out fairly well. So I just thought it'd be interesting to find out from you, why you chose her in the start and how everything, came down, I guess.
That's really a question for Scott Mortimer and Maddie Webster, because my 100% focus was purely on the elections. I wasn't involved in interviewing Whitney or bringing her in or vetting her. So I'm not really a good person to answer that question.
Okay, but that's an answer.
Let me interject one, if you don't mind. Let me interject one last thing about the PPQs. A lot of people don't. I had a lot of, over the years there was a lot of people saying, it's not a lot, but a few people were very skeptical of PPQs. Like, what do? They're non-binding, and they do a lot. They let a legislator know that this is what the voting. This is not just a poll. This is the voting public. This is what they feel, and it tells the legislator that it's safe to come out and decide about of marijuana legislation, and it also lets and even if they don't change their position, they should stay quiet. And
right.
It also
well, the way the ballot initiative is worded, according to actual law, is should this legislature be instructed to introduce and support legislation that would fill in the blank. So it's not just a gentle suggestion. This is an order from their constituents to their legislator.
And it's a message to newspaper and television, radio editorial boards. This is what people feel, and it's just, when people read it in the newspaper, so many times people, I'd be petitioning. People go, someone would say, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning, but I guess I'll sign it. But they don't see that all these other people are being supportive, and they are also, most of them are signing it. They don't see the level of support, and all of a sudden with the initiatives, I realize it because I'm talking to all the people, but the individual citizen doesn't realize this until they see it in the paper, and so other, people are getting emboldened, and also it reached a climax in 2014. DPF ran 8 districts from the Berkshires to Cape Cod, and we had 56 towns, and we ran an average vote of 72%, which is huge.
Was
That's
that
to regulate
medical, John? Or
No, this was legalization. This was
legalization.
Quote, tax and regulate like alcohol in 2014.
2014, right, yeah.
And what the Marijuana Policy Project ran our legalization initiative in 2016.
Yep.
And they took the results of our 2014 initiatives, these 56 towns and cities with an average 72% of the vote, and they took these results out to national funders, potential national funders, and that's what primed the well for the money for legalization. That's our local,
from the PPQs,
our state activists work here. By MassCann and by DPF is what made things happen. That it didn't just
there was also that MassCann paid this very prestigious survey company to do a $20,000 survey and all that.
Yeah.
So they did have survey data as well. But I want to point out, these PPQs are a better survey than any survey could ever hope to possibly ever be. Because when you're doing a survey, you're calling people up and you're asking them, are you going to vote? And they all say, oh yeah, I'm going to vote. Whether they're going to actually vote or not, that's true. This is people who are actually in the act of voting and actually voting. So there's no question about it. Is this person a voter at all? And then there's the whole thing about the depth of their feeling about it. People wouldn't even bother to fill out these PPQ questions on their ballots unless they felt strongly about it. A lot of people just ignored them. That was one of the statistics about it was, how many were left blank, things like that. We had a motivated base that was supporting us, is one of the points there, I think. And that the PPQs were a better poll, a better survey. And it wasn't just a segment that was producing a statistic for a larger proportion of the population. This was the actual population itself. You can't get as good a survey in any way, shape, or form as a PPQ. So anyway, John, we should probably think about wrapping it up, but I just thought I'd ask you a couple of last questions about how things have turned out with the legalization of marijuana in Massachusetts, what you think about the legislative rewrite of our law and the implementation of the regulations and all that stuff. What do you think?
Well, it's a constant struggle, and money in our system, money talks. The struggle continues, and some of us older activists aren't able to be, with certain circumstances, aren't able to be as active as we once were. But there's the need for continued activism, and there's a lot of stuff to do. This is, it just shouldn't be and it just shouldn't be an opportunity for the well-heeled. People without money and the minority community are, have been, sidelined. So there's a lot of work to do. The need continues on for activism, and I definitely encourage people on and to focus. I get sad when things get sidelined with side issues, personalities and such. It's good to get. I know there's been some issues, but good to get back in focus and get to the work that needs to be done. That's definitely there's definitely more to do, and we can. There's great successes. People have marijuana growing in their yards now, and before, like the poor couple, the farmers, with their kid losing, forfeiture with 15, 20 plants. So we've come a long way, and it's great. And so the especially the home grow. That's another thing. The PPQs, our PPQs emphasized home growing, and so I think that was a big part of keeping home growing in legalization. So that's another way PPQs succeeded. Some states, they've got legalization, but they don't have home grow. So we've done really well, but we obviously got to, there's more work to be done. It should, the financial barrier should be low enough that more mom and pop operations should be able to participate, not just, large corporations with, with a lot of money backing them. So yeah, everybody keep working, there's work to be done, and definitely let's keep working on it.
Right, John.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your interview. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for encouraging people to continue the fight. And thank you for all this wonderful work you've done. You've had some exciting times, so I expect in many ways all this hard work has been worth it. That you probably get some great sense of satisfaction seeing that you've got a good job well done. So congratulations.
Yeah. And thank you, Bill, because you've been a veteran right since the beginning, and you've definitely taken your lumps, some pretty large ones, and thank you, Grant and Lorna, for what you guys are doing. And I know there's been, like I say, some headaches, recently, but you persevered, and all power to you guys.
Thank you very much, John. So that's our segment of the Education Village, here provided to you by MassCann Normal. Our website, again, is www.masscann.org. And also look for us on YouTube and on social media accounts and things like that. We're pretty connected. So hopefully you'll be able to see this video through any one of a number of means. Thank you all very much for watching. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll be able to talk with some of the other early people, some of who we've discussed a little bit today. So adieu, madame et monsieur.